Ever feel like the way computers learn is just so, I don't know, linear? Our brains don't work like that, right? We're always jumping from one thought to another. Turns out some researchers were thinking the same thing.
Yeah, and it really did kind of shake things up in the field of machine learning.
Right. That's what's so cool about this deep dive. We're looking at this research paper. Attention is all you need.
Fascinating stuff.
It's all about this thing called a transformer. And no, before anyone asks, we're not talking about Optimus Prime and the gang here.
No, no, nothing to do with robots in disguise this time.
This is about how machines process language and how this transformer idea, well, it kind of blows the old way out of the
A
water.
total paradigm shift, yeah. Imagine, like, trying to understand a sentence, but you're stuck going through it one word at a time, super meticulously. It'd be slow, and you'd probably,
Miss the bigger picture.
exactly. And that, unfortunately, is how a lot of the traditional models, like RNNs, used to work.
It's kind of like when I try to remember a phone number, you know?
Yeah.
I get to like the fourth digit and then poof,
Too
gone.
much to process in a straight line.
Totally. So this paper, it tackles that problem head on, right?
Yeah. Basically, the researchers were like, what if instead of this whole linear thing, we let the model look at all the words in a sentence at the same time? And that was kind of the birth of the transformer.
Hold on, looking at all the words at the same time, that just seems, I don't know, too complex. Like, how can a machine even do that? It's almost human.
Well, that's the really clever part. They actually took inspiration from the way we process language by introducing something called attention.
Okay, attention. I like it. Sounds intriguing already.
Think about like reading a really good novel. You're not just passively going through each word, right? You're making connections, picking up on clues, even if they're pages apart.
It's like when you're trying to solve a mystery. You're paying attention to all the different pieces of the puzzle, not just following some straight line.
Exactly. And that's essentially what the transformer model does with language. It lets the model weigh the importance of each word in relation to all the other words in the sentence at the same time.
So it's not just reading a sentence like it's a grocery list. It's more like analyzing a poem, right?
Yeah.
Looking for meaning on all these different levels.
That's a great way to put it. And this whole attention
Yeah.
mechanism, as we call it, that's where things get really, really interesting.
All right, you got me hooked. How does this attention thing actually work? Break it down for me.
So imagine reading like a news article, right?
Yeah.
Some of the words are going to kind of jump out at you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're about the main topic or something, or maybe they're, emotionally charged.
They're like the bold type words of the sentence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Attention is basically the model doing that kind of highlighting, but like in a way, more nuanced way.
So it's figuring out which words are the real heavy hitters, the ones that are actually driving the meaning of the sentence.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes beyond just like individual words too, right? It's about understanding those relationships between words, even if they're like miles apart in the sentence.
Okay, now I'm picturing one of those detectives' evidence boards with all the words pinned up and connected with the red string. But, like, how does the model actually decide which words are connected? This seems like magic.
Well, no magic involved, really.
Keep
It's
going.
all algorithms, right? The model assigns like a weight to each word, and that's based on how relevant it thinks that word is to the other words in a sentence.
So higher weight means stronger connection, like
Uh,
kind of how Google ranks websites.
That's a really good analogy, actually. And here's where it gets even cooler. Remember how we talked about the brain, like jumping around, making connections all over the place? The transformer can kind of do that too with this thing called multi-head attention.
Multi-head.
Yeah.
Is that where the AI, like, starts growing its own brain and writing a screenplay?
Not quite, but it does sound kind of creepy, right?
Mhm.
But no, think of it like having, I don't know, a whole team of specialists all analyzing the same sentence, but each one's focusing on different things, different aspects.
So, like, one's obsessed with grammar, another one's looking at the literal meaning of each word, and another one's trying to figure out if the sentence is happy, sad.
Exactly. You're getting multiple perspectives on the same piece of information, which obviously just gives you a richer understanding than if you were just, looking at it from one angle.
No wonder these transformers are so good at understanding all the nuances of language. It's like they've got this whole team of experts on the case.
Yeah. And then at the heart of all of this is self-attention.
Self attention. Okay, you got to explain this one. What's that all about?
So it basically means that each word in a sentence, it's not just paying attention to the other words around it. It's also paying attention to itself.
Whoa, that's deep. Like some next level introspection going on there.
Right. So it's figuring out its own role, its own importance in the grand scheme of the whole sentence.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So this self-attention thing, why is it such a big deal compared to, like, the old way of doing things?
Well, one thing is it's way, way faster. Remember how we were saying that those RNNs, they had to go through sentences word by word?
Yeah, like it was a slog or something.
Right. But self-attention allows for way more parallelization.
Mm.
So basically, the model can process the whole sentence, like, all at once.
So instead of reading each word on a page, it's like looking at a picture and just getting it instantly.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And it's not even just about speed. Self-attention's also way better at handling those long-range dependencies we were talking about earlier, those connections between words that might be, like, super far apart.
So it's like having a bird's eye view of the entire sentence so you don't miss those connections that a more, I don't know, myopic approach would totally overlook.
Exactly. You're getting it. And the best part, this isn't just some theoretical mumbo-jumbo, you know. These researchers, they actually tested out this transformer on real-world tasks. And the results, let me tell you, they were kind of mind-blowing.
Okay, now you have to spill the tea. What kind of tasks are we talking about?
Well, one of the things the transformer was amazingly good at was machine translation. They tested it out on this massive English to German data set.
Okay, so like if I had this thing, I wouldn't have needed that clunky phrase book on my last trip to Berlin.
Yeah. It would have been a much cooler souvenir, that's for sure.
My German is a little, let's just say it needs some work.
Well, this thing would have been your new best friend then. But what I think is even cooler is this, they also tried the transformer on a completely different kind of task. English constituency parsing.
Constituency parsing. I'm
Uh-huh.
not going to lie, that sounds kind of intimidating, even for me. What is that in a nutshell?
Okay, so basically picture like diagramming a sentence, but on like a whole other
I
level.
like sentences with weights, clauses, and subclauses.
Yeah. So the model analyzes the sentence
Mm.
and tries to figure out the grammatical structure, like what's the subject, the verb, the object, all those relationships between the different parts of the sentence.
So it's not just understanding what the words mean, it's understanding how they grammatically fit together to create meaning.
You got it. And the crazy thing is, the transformer, which remember was designed for translation, right? Was amazing at this parsing thing too.
This transformer is starting to sound like a real overachiever, fluent in multiple languages, and a grammar whiz. I'm impressed.
I know, right? But it really shows just how versatile this approach is, and that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay, now I'm really on the edge of my seat. What are the big picture implications here? So
Yeah.
we've got this model, right? It can translate languages like way better than we've ever seen. It can analyze grammar like a pro.
It's pretty amazing.
It really is. It's like the, I don't know, the Swiss Army knife of language processing. But something tells me we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg here,
Oh, for sure. I mean, think about it. This paper, it came out in 2017.
which in the world of AI, that's like
Ancient history.
practically, yeah. So much has happened since then.
Exactly. And this whole attention thing, it's become like the backbone of some of the most powerful language models out there.
Okay, like what? Give me some examples. What can these attention-powered models do now?
Well, I mean, you've definitely heard of things like ChatGPT, right?
Of course, who hasn't?
They can have like full-blown conversations,
What?
write different kinds of creative content, answer your questions in a way that actually makes sense. Even if your question is, super open-ended or challenging, maybe even a little weird. And those kinds of models, they wouldn't exist without this fundamental idea of attention.
It's kind of wild how quickly this technology has taken off. Like what started as this groundbreaking research paper is now.
Powering the tools we use every day. And it's not just about chatbots and translation anymore either.
Yeah.
This technology is being used to improve all sorts of stuff. I mean, we're talking medical diagnoses, personalized education, I don't know, you name it.
It's almost like,
Limitless potential.
yeah, it's incredible, but it's also a little, I don't know.
A little daunting.
Yeah, like AI is getting so good at understanding us, it makes you wonder what's next, you know?
Absolutely. It's like we're living in a science fiction novel, but it's actually real.
I know, right? And that's the thing about technology, I guess. It has the power to completely change the world in ways we never could have imagined.
It definitely keeps things interesting.
That it does. Well, I think one thing's for sure. This attention is all you need paper, it wasn't just some, academic thing. It was a real turning point.
Absolutely. Just
Mhm.
goes to show how powerful a new idea can be, right?
Totally. So for those listening who want to dive into the nitty-gritty, where should they go?
Well, the full research paper is online, of course. But fair warning, it's definitely a little dense. There are also a bunch of I don't know, easier to digest resources out there that explain all of this in a, more accessible way.
We'll be sure to link those in the show notes for everyone. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
It's flown by, as always.
We've covered a lot from how this whole attention thing actually works to like the future of AI and, well,
The future of humanity.
exactly. So, to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Until next time, keep those brains engaged and that curiosity high.